Hello, and welcome to Dreamy Tales, a sanctuary where everyone can experience calm and a touch of magic before gently drifting into sleep. Tonight, we invite you on another enchanting journey, a story that helps soothe the mind and nurture a sense of peace. Before we begin, let's take a moment to prepare our bodies and minds for a comforting, restorative rest. Make yourself cozy, and with each slow inhale and long exhale, let the cares of the day gradually slip away. It's not always easy to step back from the day's demands, especially as night falls. Yet, remember, the less we worry about how quickly we'll fall asleep, the simpler it is for our minds to release any remaining tension. Allow the gentle flow of your breathing to wash away lingering concerns, and let the story ahead guide you into a state of deep relaxation. Now, settle in, and let the dreamy atmosphere softly wrap around you. Enjoy this story, and may you drift into a peaceful, restful slumber here on Dreamy Tales. In an age veiled by time's soft dust, Ilara dwelled where the fields met the sky, nestled with her mother, father, and a tumble of younger siblings. Their existence, woven from the threads of benevolence and earth-bound humility, unfolded on land they patiently tilled. Every child lent small hands to the farm's rhythm, yet shadows of hardship sometimes stretched long across their simple hearth. As the eldest, Ilara shouldered burdens beyond her years with quiet grace. Beyond the endless cycle of washing, the simmer of cookpots, and the gentle shepherding of little ones, her moments of quietude were claimed by the whirring spindle, transforming fleece into vital yarn. Winter found her cocooned by the hearth's ancient stones, a whisper of warmth on her face, her small alabaster cat a coiled dream at her feet. But when summer unfurled its green banners, she sought solace under the open sky, perhaps beneath a whispering willow, or beside the brook's liquid song. Sunshine dappled her work. Butterflies danced attendance. Birdsong provided a cheerful chorus. Here, humming forgotten tunes, she spun until duty called, her spirit uncomplaining, her patience a deep wellspring for kin, even when fatigue weighed heavy. One luminous summer afternoon found Ilara perched upon the sun-baked capstones of the old well near their cottage, her spindle a blur of motion. The air hung thick with the scent of clover, and the drone of languid bees exploring the flower beds. Her drowsy cat sprawled, a patch of white fur on the emerald grass. Nearby, her youngest siblings orchestrated empires from pebbles to the cottage doorway, while faint clinks from the kitchen spoke of their mother preparing the evening meal. Lost in the tranquil beauty, Ilara spun deftly, coaxing thread into existence, her soft song weaving through the air. She aimed for just a little more precious yarn before the livestock beckoned. Glancing up, she saw Old Man Hemlock from the neighboring farm ambling past on the lane, his dog trotting faithfully beside him. He lifted a weathered hand in greeting. A smile touched Ilara's lips. She shifted the spindle to her lap to return the wave. A fatal miscalculation. A nudge, a slip, and the polished wood tumbled from her grasp, vanishing into the well's dark maw. Ilara lunged, fingers grasping air, hoping against hope it had caught on some mossy ledge near the lip. She leaned precariously, peering into the cool shadows. Deeper, just a fraction deeper, and equilibrium abandoned her. head first, she plunged into the waiting darkness. The descent was peculiar, utterly devoid of the expected terror. Instead, a weightless drift claimed her, as if she sailed through an endless, silent void, stone and earth receding into irrelevance. Time itself seemed to pause, suspended. Darkness enveloped her, profound yet strangely comforting. Below, where her feet pointed, pinpricks of light emerged, distant, shimmering stars. They didn't approach, but their numbers swelled, blossoming until she felt herself plunging feet first into a breathtaking celestial expanse. Elara stretched her arms downward, yearning to touch the glittering stardust, only to find herself inverted, the star field now blazing overhead. A roaring, like a subterranean river, filled her ears, accompanied by a cool, insistent current of air washing over her skin. Down, ever down she spiraled, an immense drowsiness stealing behind her eyes. Then, oblivion. Consciousness returned softly, like dawn breaking. She lay supine in a meadow painted with wildflowers, gazing up at an impossibly blue, cloudless sky. Sitting up, her eyes swept the panorama. No sign of any well, neither gaping earth nor structure above. It was as if she'd simply bloomed into existence here. A quick check confirmed wholeness. Limbs responded, head clear, a profound sense of well-being suffusing her, the residue of a deep, untroubled slumber. The meadow stretched, a vibrant green tapestry bordered by encircling woods. Centered within this idyllic expanse stood a quaint house, a tendril of smoke curling lazily from its chimney. Yet the scene held an unnerving stillness. No figures stirred, no animals grazed. Intrigue warred with caution. Standing adrift was no solution. The little house represented the sole prospect of aid. Elara resolved to approach, parting the tall grasses where delicate butterflies flickered like living jewels. Reaching the dwelling, she found the front door ajar, an invitation and a warning. Hesitantly, she circled the exterior, deserted. Returning to the threshold, she peered into the dim interior and called out, her voice small in the quiet. "Hello? Is anyone within?" Silence answered her call. As her vision adapted to the gloom, details emerged. A substantial oven radiating warmth from a lively fire. A table strewn haphazardly with blossoms, barrels hinting at stores tucked in a corner. The air smelled faintly of yeast and heat. Perhaps a baker resided here. While Elara debated her next move, a curious sound reached her. Faint, melodic voices, seemingly emanating from the oven's vicinity. Surely my senses deceive me, she thought, stepping closer, head cocked. Clearer now. "Greetings. Pray, release us. Our baking is done, ready for the celebration." She recoiled slightly. Had the fall addled her wits? How could bread converse? Yet the plea repeated, sweet and insistent. A quandary indeed. To intrude upon a stranger's hearth, to tamper with their baking, unthinkable. And yet, wouldn't the baker lament burnt offerings? Common sense wrestled with propriety, and sense prevailed. Locating a long-handled peel leaning nearby, Elara eased open the heavy oven door. Inside sat a row of beautiful loaves, burnished to perfection. Carefully, she slid the peel beneath them, one by one, transferring the fragrant bounty to the table to cool. The oven secured. The peel returned to its place. She surveyed her handiwork with a nod of quiet satisfaction. Though the aroma was intoxicating, and a less scrupulous soul might have claimed a crust as reward, Elara left the bread undisturbed. This place offered no answers, only mystery. Outside once more, she spied a faintly trodden path leading from the cottage into the nearby woods. It seemed the most logical route. Setting her shoulders, Elara followed the trail towards the trees. The woods embraced her, not dense or menacing, but a sun-dappled haven where light filtered through gently rustling leaves, pooling on the mossy floor. Squirrels performed arboreal acrobatics. Birdsong cascaded from unseen perches. The path, soft beneath her feet, wound agreeably, crossing tiny, chattering brooks and skirting lichen-painted trunks. Though her destination remained unknown, Elara's spirit felt buoyant, a half-remembered tune escaping her lips as she ambled deeper into the green tranquility. After a while, the path led her into a clearing dominated by apple trees, their branches laden. Weariness began to settle in her limbs. So she sought respite beneath one of the trees, leaning her head against the rough bark and closing her eyes. The forest murmured around her, the trill of birds, the thrum of insects, the scurry of unseen creatures in the canopy. Sleep beckoned, soft and inviting. But just as she hovered on its edge, distinct voices intruded. Eyes fluttering open, she listened intently. "Ho there! We are burdened. Please shake our limbs that the ripe fruit may tumble for the gathering." After the talking loaves, the second marvel seemed less startling. With time stretching undefined before her, Elara rose and readily complied, moving from tree to tree, giving each a vigorous shake until a rain of crimson and gold apples showered the ground. Ever methodical, she gathered the fallen fruit into the apron of her skirt, then carefully arranged neat mounds at the base of each trunk, taking care not to mar their delicate skins. Her task complete, the harvest respectfully left for its rightful owner, she resumed her journey along the winding path, leaving the orchard's bounty untouched. Emerging from the apple grove, a profound fatigue settled upon Elara. She couldn't gauge how long she'd walked, but the slant of the light and her own elongated shadow spoke of the afternoon waning. Dusk wasn't far off. A flicker of anxiety touched her. Where would she shelter when darkness fell? Just then, the path spilled out of the trees into a wide clearing. Before her, a river flowed with unhurried grace, reflecting the sky. Beyond it, majestic mountains pierced the horizon. The scene's beauty caught her breath. Nestled near the riverbank stood an impeccably tidy cottage, enclosed by a crisp white picket fence. Flourishing garden beds flanked it, and nearby goats and sheep grazed placidly. A voluminous, snow-white eiderdown quilt hung airing on a long clothesline. From the stone chimney, a delicate plume of smoke ascended into the pink and gold tapestry of the evening sky. Hope rekindled. Elara summoned her resolve and made her way towards this welcoming vision. Perhaps here she might find a morsel of food, a corner by a fire to pass the night. She reached the small gate, lifted the latch carefully, stepped through, and secured it behind her. A path of smooth gray flagstones led between vibrant plots of green towards the cottage's arched front door, painted a cheerful cherry red. Pausing for a heartbeat, she raised her hand and knocked. Elara started as a small square panel slid open in the door, somewhat below her eye level. Bending slightly, she met a pair of watchful eyes peering out. "What is it you require?" a woman's voice inquired, laced with caution. Forgive my intrusion, Ilara began hesitantly. My name is Ilara. I find myself quite lost. I was hoping. Might you spare a little food and perhaps offer shelter for the night? Any small space would suffice. The eyes regarded her silently for what felt like an age. Then the peephole snapped shut, and the entire door swung inward. Standing there was an elderly woman whose face, though lined, held a fundamental kindness. She wore plain, sturdy homespun cloth, protected by a practical apron. Her abundant white hair swept back into a neat, no-nonsense bun. Squinting at the visitor, she retrieved a pair of delicate wire-rimmed spectacles from her apron pocket and perched them on her nose. A broad, welcoming smile transformed her features. Well now, child, she said, her voice warmer now. Visitors are rare birds in these parts. If you're willing to lend a hand with the household tasks, I'd be grateful for the help, and happy to share my humble roof and table in return. A wave of relief washed over Ilara. Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm quite adept at chores, and I would be deeply thankful for your kindness. Settled, then, the woman declared briskly. Best come inside. The day grows old, and you need sustenance and rest. The work can wait for the morrow. There's always plenty. She paused, adding, A pleasure to meet you, Ilara. You may call me Dame Hola. With that, she turned, gesturing for Ilara to follow her into the cottage's cozy confines. Ilara stepped over the threshold. The ceiling was surprisingly low, and pulled the door closed behind her. The interior was a single, encompassing room. To her left stood a simple table flanked by 2 chairs, with pots and utensils visible on a nearby counter. Across the space, Ilara noted a bedstead, clearly the intended place for the quilt airing outside. Near the hearth, 2 rocking chairs waited companionably, a mending basket nestled between them. A pot bubbled over the stone fireplace, emitting the most heavenly aroma of stew Ilara had ever encountered, reminding her sharply of her hunger after the day's strange pilgrimage. Dame Hull soon settled her by the fire's comforting glow, ladling out a generous portion of the savory stew. They ate in companionable silence as the firelight danced and shadows deepened beyond the windows. Once the meal was finished, Dame Hola requested, Would you be so good as to fetch the eiderdown from the line, dearie? No need to shake it tonight. I saw to that this morning. Ilara ventured into the cool night garden, retrieved the surprisingly light quilt, and brought it inside to lay upon the bed. Afterwards, she helped Dame Hull clear the table and tidy the small kitchen space, without probing questions about Ilara's origins or destination. The kindly woman retrieved a blanket and pillow from a carved wooden chest and prepared a makeshift bed for the weary girl near the hearth. Rest now, Dame Hull said gently. Tomorrow will bring its own work. The flickering flames cast hypnotic patterns on the low ceiling. Ilara sank onto the soft bedding with profound gratitude. The distant hoot of an owl, the occasional bleat of a goat outside were faint lullabies. Within moments, she succumbed to a deep, untroubled sleep. Ilara awoke with the first blush of dawn, feeling more profoundly rested than she could recall. After a simple breakfast, she eagerly awaited Dame Hull's instructions. Many tasks were comfortingly familiar, echoes of her life back home, tending the small flock of goats and sheep, feeding the chickens, washing dishes, sweeping floors. Dame Hull clearly burdened by advancing years and the upkeep of her homestead, beamed with pleasure at Ilara's capable, youthful energy. With 2 pairs of hands, the cottage soon gleamed. One duty, however, Dame Hola emphasized with particular gravity. Each morning, Ilara, she instructed, you must take the eider down from my bed. Carry it outside and shake it with all your might. Shake until the tiny feathers drift free, making it light and airy once more. This task is paramount. You understand? Ilara nodded solemnly, accepting the charge without question. Daily, she performed the ritual, shaking the great white quilt until a flurry of downy feathers danced on the breeze, some scattering far, others settling near her feet. Then, she would carefully hang the refreshed eider down back on the line to air until evening. The first day melted into the next. Having no other destination, and finding contentment in the rhythm of the work and the old woman's company, Ilara stayed. Dame Hola, in turn, cherished the companionship and the assistance. Weeks unfolded in this peaceful, symbiotic routine. After some weeks had passed, Dame Hola entrusted Ilara with a further responsibility. There is another vital task, child. Take my large watering can. She indicated a sizable vessel in the corner, and tend to the garden plot. Ensure every inch receives its share. Shower the earth thoroughly, coaxing the seeds into abundance. Ilara embraced this duty diligently, making numerous trips to the river, sprinkling life-giving water across the prepared soil each day. Soon, the earth responded generously. Vivid tulips, irises, and daffodils unfurled in one section, while rows of crisp lettuce, sharp green onions, cabbages, and radishes flourished in another. Dame Hola possessed a miraculous touch with growing things. Ilara's watering seemed merely to unlock the inherent vitality. Months slipped by unnoticed, filled with purposeful activity and quiet satisfaction. Yet, as seasons turned subtly in this timeless place, a pensiveness began to cloud Ilara's brow. She grew quieter during their evenings by the fire, her gaze often drifting absently during mending. Dame Hola, observant and kind, eventually inquired gently about the source of her melancholy. "Oh, Dame Hola," Ilara confessed, her voice thick with emotion. "You have been goodness itself to me, and I find joy in helping you here. But truth be told, a great longing for my family has taken root in my heart. I ache for home, and I see no path back to them. I am terribly homesick, and I yearn constantly to find my way back up the well where I lost my spindle." Don Jorge listened with profound empathy, her gaze soft. Then, reaching into the mending basket beside her chair, she withdrew a familiar object, the very spindle Ilara had pursued on that fateful day. Ilara gasped, astonished. "My spindle? But how did you come by it?" Dame Hole's eyes, ancient and knowing, sparkled behind her spectacles. "It landed in my garden, child. For you see, I am the keeper of the threshold between your world and this. Little occurs here that escapes my notice." Ilara reached out reverently and took the smooth, familiar wood into her hands. Then you must know the way. Can you guide me home, Dame Hola? Please?" The old woman leaned back in her rocker, folding her hands peacefully in her lap, her smile gentle. "You have proven yourself good and true, Ilara. Though I shall miss your presence, it is time for you to rejoin your kin. Rest deeply tonight, and at dawn's first light, I shall set you upon your path." Ilara's heart swelled with such joy, she doubted sleep would come. yet she underestimated the cottage's tranquil magic. Clutching her recovered spindle, she settled onto her familiar pallet by the fire. Once more, the crackling flames and the soft calls of the night birds outside wove their spell, drawing her swiftly into a profound and healing slumber. As sunlight streamed through the window, Elara arose, neatly folded her bedding, and placed it within the wooden chest. She then performed her final duty, taking Dame Hole's eiderdown outside for its vigorous morning shake, before hanging it carefully on the line. "Well done, dear child," Dame Hole said, emerging from the cottage carrying a woven basket. "This is for you." Lifting the lid, Elara saw it was laden with beautiful, ripe apples and loaves of still warm, fragrant bread. Dame Holle continued, her voice warm with approval. "During your time here, Elara, your help has been invaluable. You rescued the baking when the hearth was hot and my attention was elsewhere. You gathered the fruit when the trees bent low under their burden. Each day, you faithfully shook the eiderdown until the feathers took flight, and you diligently watered my garden until it bloomed and flourished." Humbled, Elara murmured, "They were but simple tasks, Dame Hole, duties anyone could perform." The old woman smiled kindly. "Ah, but those simple tasks, my dear, are the very warp and weft of the seasons in your world. Tending the loaves in the warm oven brings forth the golden days of summer. Shaking the fruit-laden trees signals the arrival of autumn's bounty. Each time you sent the feathers flying from my eiderdown, soft snowflakes drifted down upon the earth somewhere. And when you faithfully watered my garden, you summoned the spring rains that awaken life anew, beginning the cycle once more." She gestured towards the basket Elara now held. "This basket shall remain ever full, a testament to your diligence and honesty. Your family will share in the rewards of your good work. You took no bread when hungry, no apple when tempted. Now, I give them freely to you." Deeply moved by this extraordinary gift that promised sustenance for her loved ones, Elara embraced Dame Hole, thanking her with heartfelt gratitude. Then, remembering her purpose, she asked, "But how do I find the path? Where must I go to return?" Dame Hole turned and indicated the gently flowing river. "You arrived through the water, child, and so shall you depart. Follow the river upstream, walk for some hours, and you will eventually come upon a great stone bridge spanning the waters. Cross that bridge, and the moment your foot touches the farther bank, you will find yourself home." "Will I ever be able to come back to see you again?" Elara asked wistfully. Dame Hole shook her head gently. "No, my dear. Your passage here was a unique crossing, not to be replicated. But I promise you this. Whenever you feel the sun's warmth upon your face, watch the apples ripen and fall. Observe the silent descent of snowflakes upon the world, or hear the soft drumming of rain, nourishing your spring garden. In those moments, know that I am near." Elara embraced the wise woman one final time, then passed through the little white gate, turning to wave as she made her way towards the riverbank. She began walking upstream, tracing the water's course. Looking back after a short while, she saw that Dame Hole's cottage had vanished, as if it had never been, melting into the landscape like mist. She walked for what seemed a long time beside the beautiful river, its waters sometimes rushing over rapids, sometimes cascading over smooth stones in sparkling falls. When the sun reached its zenith, She rested beneath a shady tree, partaking of the miraculous basket, a piece of the warm, yielding bread, and a crisp, sweet apple. Both tasted divine. Resuming her journey as the afternoon shadows began to stretch, she eventually spied it in the distance, a great stone bridge arching with timeless grace across the entire breadth of the river. It looked ancient, weathered by forgotten centuries. Recognizing her threshold, Elara approached the bank and stepped onto the stone pathway with a hesitant breath, half expecting a sudden shift. Nothing occurred. She proceeded onto the span, her footsteps echoing softly. Reaching the midpoint, high above the water, she paused, set down her basket, and turned to gaze back the way she had come. The view was magnificent, the river snaking towards the horizon, flanked by woodland and watched over by the distant mountain. Below, the water flowed deep and mysterious. Taking one last, lingering look at the panorama under the vast, clear sky, Elara retrieved her basket and walked towards the far end of the bridge. As she reached the edge, she held her breath. One foot touched the grassy bank beyond the stonework. Still, nothing changed. A flicker of doubt. What if the magic failed? Closing her eyes tightly, gripping the basket handle, she took the final step. Instantly, the familiar roaring filled her ears, the sound of a rushing torrent, and the cool current of air washed over her just as it had in the well's descent. She opened her eyes. She was standing in the familiar yard of her own home. A chorus of joyous cries erupted as her family rushed out to meet her. Time, she learned, had flowed onward in her absence. Many months had slipped by since her disappearance. She was enveloped in loving embraces, everyone eager to hear the tale of her miraculous return. Relief washed over Elara, profound and sweet, to be home amongst her own. That evening, gathered around the familiar hearth, she recounted the wonders of Dame Holla's realm to her wide-eyed siblings. Afterwards, the entire family shared a bounteous meal, courtesy of the extraordinary basket whose contents of bread and apples, incredibly, never diminished. Elara resumed her place in the family's life, taking up her chores not merely with diligence, but with a newfound gladness, understanding now the deep, quiet magic inherent in honest work well done. And from that day forward, whenever Elara felt the gentle patter of rain upon the roof, or sat spinning by the window watching feathery snowflakes drift lazily down to blanket the world, a quiet smile would touch her lips. She knew, with unshakable certainty, that far away, yet ever near, Dame Hole was tending the seasons, her eider-down quilt being shaken faithfully, just as it should be. To behold a rose unfurling is to grasp the fleeting nectar of the now, a sensory immersion in the present. Yet, this velvet bloom speaks also of impermanence. Its life, a brief fortnight of glory, deepens our reverence for its transient grace. The rose, it seems, belongs wholly to the moment, its history seldom pondered. But delve deeper, and the rose unfurls an astonishing antiquity. While not Earth's primordial blossom, its lineage stretches back, far back, at least 35 million years. A fossilized whisper of a rose, unearthed from the sun-baked strata of Colorado's ancient beds, bears testament to this immense age. Consider this. When that primeval rose bloomed, the great lizards had slumbered in extinction's dust for 30 million years already. Our own species, Homo sapiens, emerged a mere 300,000 years ago. That fossil rose, then, shares more time with the dinosaurs than with us. For millennia, uncounted, wild roses painted landscapes across the globe. Yet, the earliest confirmed whispers of deliberate cultivation arise from ancient Cathay, around 500 BCE. Music interlude. It's conceivable that similar efforts blossomed concurrently around the Levant seas and in Persia. Beyond tending the wild varieties, gardeners began coaxing forth new forms, cultivating a marvel that became known as the Cathay bloom. Music interlude. This persistent flower, gracing gardens throughout the growing season, stands as the progenitor of countless modern cultivars. Emperors of Cathay nurtured a profound obsession with roses. The sage Master Kalen, living in the 6th century BCE, recorded some 600 volumes dedicated to rose cultivation within the imperial library. This royal fascination endured for ages. Centuries later, during the Han Dynasty, roses carpeted vast tracts of land, so extensively that farmland itself grew scarce for a time. Imperial ambition filled palace gardens and the surrounding countryside with rippling seas of roses. Elsewhere, the rose wove itself into the fabric of cultures through different threads. Music interlude. In the sun-drenched lands of ancient Hellas and Rome, widespread cultivation akin to Cathay's seems absent. Nevertheless, the rose resonated with potent symbolism, held in high esteem. Perhaps it was in Hellas that the rose first blushed with the hues of love and ardor. Lyraea, the Hellenic embodiment of love, and her Roman reflection, Amoria, were both entwined with the rose. In a famed Renaissance masterwork depicting Amoria's birth, the goddess emerges from an oceanic shell, while winds scatter a cascade of pink roses around her. Myths surrounding Lyraea bloom profusely. One tells of white roses springing from the sea foam at her genesis. Another whispers of the goddess pricking her foot upon a thorn, her divine blood staining white petals forever crimson. Like Lyraea, Amoria reigned as the deity of roses, love, and matrimony in ancient Rome. Devotees brought roses as offerings to her temples, and the flowers frequently adorned bridal garlands, perhaps the very root in the West of the rose's enduring romantic connotations. But the rose held other meanings, veiled and complex. Music interlude. For the Romans, it signified confidentiality, a promise of silence. During clandestine political councils, a single rose hung upon the door served as a potent emblem. This practice evolved into another tradition, festooning the ceilings of banquet halls with roses. Guests, even when sub vino, under wine's influence, were reminded they were also sub rosa, under the rose. The blossoms overhead were a constant, fragrant injunction that conversations must remain secret. Intriguingly, this tradition too finds roots in myth. Eros Minor, a lesser god of love, once gifted a scarlet rose to Tacitus Deus, the god of silence. Eros Minor sought to ensure his mother Amoria's romantic escapades remained unspoken, bribing silence itself with the flower's beauty. In Roman times, roses played vital roles in ceremony. Across the empire, the Floralia festival saw garlands of roses and other blooms laid upon burial sites. Here, roses spoke of a different love, remembrance, hope, and the cycle of rebirth. Showers of petals also rained down during triumphs, celebrating returning generals. Though these ancient rites have faded, roses still grace religious ceremonies in Rome today. Music interlude. The ancient pantheon, now consecrated as a Christian church, hosts a unique ceremony each Pentecost. Through the great oculus in its dome, tens of thousands of rose petals drift down like crimson snow, blanketing the marble floor below. A breathtaking spectacle symbolizing the Holy Spirit's descent. Yet, while imbued with spiritual weight, the rose could also signify earthly excess, the pinnacle of luxury and decadence. Consider the infamous tale of Emperor Valerius Minor from ancient Rome. Ascending to power at 14, his brief reign is remembered less for governance than for revelry. Legend recounts a notorious banquet where he orchestrated such a deluge of petals from the ceiling that his guests were literally smothered beneath the fragrant tide. A dramatic 19th century painting captures the scene. The young emperor lounging, oblivious, while his companions vanish into a suffocating pink sea. Another ancient narrative features Queen Neferura of Egypt, who employed roses as a theatrical display of seductive power. Her bedchamber, it's claimed, lay knee-deep in petals, and she purportedly favored pillows stuffed with them. Whether truth or embellished myth, these extravagant tales illustrate how the rose became synonymous not just with love, but with opulent splendor, its value amplified by legend as much as by its intrinsic allure. There is more to the rose than meets the eye or delights the nose. Across centuries and cultures, humanity has drawn upon the flower's nourishing and healing gifts. The ruby hips, nestled below the fading petals, swell with vitamin C. The petals themselves are credited with antibacterial and anti-inflammatory virtues. In herbal lore, they serve to soothe digestion, alleviate stress, elevate spirits, and more. The Rosa officinalis, or healer's bloom, was a cherished resident of medieval visit gardens. Its fragrant, generous pink petals lending themselves to medicines and perfumes alike. By steeping petals in water, their essence can be captured as fragrant oils. This alchemy flourished not only in Europe, but notably in Persia, where for centuries artisans have meticulously extracted precious attar from rose petals. This oil scents perfumes and incense, while its byproduct, rose water, graces foods, beverages, and cosmetics with its delicate aroma. From potent remedies to ethereal fragrances, the rose offers myriad practical gifts. Yet for modern gardeners, its primary allure is ornamental beauty. And in Western consciousness, the rose reigns supreme as a symbol of romance. Beyond being the quintessential Valentine's offering, it stars in countless verses and melodies. Curiously, the apotheosis of the rose's modern romantic stature can be traced to a single extraordinary garden, that of the Château de Valombre, some 15 kilometers west of Lutetia. Acquired in 1799, This grand estate became the sanctuary of Empress Celeste, wife of General Armand. While Armand pursued campaigns abroad in the early 19th century, Celeste immersed herself in transforming the house and grounds. Her childhood on the Caribbean isle of Martinique perhaps instilled in her a passion for collecting flora and fauna from distant shores. "I aim," she penned in a letter, "to create the most beautiful and curious garden in Europe, and a model of cultivation." Celeste cultivated all manner of exotic wonders, even constructing a heated orangery for pineapples. Her menagerie included kangaroos, zebras, and ostriches roaming the estate. Music interlude. Visitors of the era were likely most astonished by encounters with Celeste's exotic beasts. Yet the enduring legacy of Valombre resides in its unparalleled rose garden. Music interlude. Celeste, whose own name echoed the flowers she adored, became an obsessive collector. Aided by expert botanists and gardeners, she amassed around 230 distinct rose varieties at Valombre, aspiring to possess every known type. General Armand even commanded the French Navy to seize seeds and plants from captured vessels, dispatching them directly to his wife's burgeoning collection. Celeste's rose garden, immortalized in artworks, became a fount of inspiration for European gardeners and breeders. It stands as arguably one of the world's first and most influential gardens, dedicated primarily to a single flower genus, a novel concept for its time. Her vast and varied collection yielded another crucial benefit. It included the ever-blooming roses from Cathay. Unlike most European varieties, these Cathay blooms flowered repeatedly, bestowing upon them significant value and commercial promise. Music interlude. Horticulturists began to experiment interweaving the lineages of different roses. Then, in 19th century Gaul, the Paragon tea rose emerged. This cultivar embodies the classic rose ideal: fragrant, vigorous, exquisitely formed, and perpetually blooming. Crucially, the Paragon tea rose grows upon a long, elegant stem, perfect for cutting and presenting as a solitary, eloquent gesture. These long-stemmed emblems of romance, synonymous with Valentine's Day, trace their lineage, albeit indirectly, back to Empress Celeste's garden. The Empress inadvertently played a pivotal role in seeding the modern rose industry. In essence, the rose's romantic symbolism evolved over 2 millennia in the West, likely originating with the goddesses Lyria and Amoria. Centuries later, inspired by Empress Celeste's horticultural passion, breeders crafted the Paragon tea rose, uniting the finest traits of European and Cathay varieties. Its commercial appeal soared, further cemented by the era of sentiment's tradition of imbuing flowers with specific meanings. But the chronicle does not conclude there. Gardeners perpetually cultivate and conjure new rose iterations, experimenting with diverse lineages, just as those inspired by Celeste once did. To birth a new rose, a breeder selects 2 parents possessing desired qualities, perhaps one for its specific shade of blush, the other for its potent, sweet perfume. Pollen is carefully transferred between the chosen blooms, mimicking nature's bee-assisted dance. This cross-pollination yields a rose hip, the fruit cradling the seeds of potential. Once ripened, the seeds are harvested, stored, then sown within the controlled climate of a greenhouse. Seedlings showing promise graduate to the garden, their growth meticulously observed. This cycle repeats endlessly, refining characteristics generation by generation. Professional breeders might conduct up to 100,000 crosses, dedicating years to producing just a few novel hybrids. They arrive in every conceivable hue, from deepest crimson to palest apricot, bearing names as lovely as their petals: moonstone, lavender symphonies, velvet fragrance, and countless more. And all the while, an ancient rose endures, growing and blooming, year after relentless year. Unlike the breeder's careful constructs, this specimen is pure, untamed nature. The millennial rose, clambering up the walls of Hildesheim Minster in Germania. It bears no resemblance to the long-stemmed Valentine's gift or Celeste's manicured shrubs. It is a wild, sprawling dog rose, 10 meters tall, ascending the ancient brickwork. For much of the year, it appears as a tangled mass of woody vines. But each year, in late May, it erupts in a cloud of delicate, pale, pink blossoms, releasing a subtle fragrance. They call it the millennial rose, for tradition holds it dates back to the Minster's founding in the 9th century. Legend tells of an emperor finding, amidst summer's heat, a snowy mound miraculously veiled by a blooming rose bush. He decreed a cathedral be built precisely there, encircling the miraculous plant. The rose persisted through centuries, even surviving the cathedral's bombing in the Second World War. The beauty of most flowers is a fleeting breath, yet the millennial rose seems almost eternal. Its blossoms appear and vanish annually, yet their return is assured, a living testament to hope and rebirth. And herein, perhaps, lies the rose's deepest beauty. It transcends the vibrancy of its petals, the heavenliness of its scent. It resides in what the flower signifies across ages and cultures. Though individual blooms must fade, the meaning of the rose endures, as tenacious and profound as that first ancient flower. The rose that bloomed 35 million years ago.